FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
On to the issue of ISIS and the fight against radical Islam. We're honored at this hour to have Robert Spencer as our guest, who's the director of Jihad Watch, a program of the Horowitz Freedom Center, and he's authored multiple books, many New York Times bestsellers, The Truth About Muhammad and The Politically Incorrect Guide to Islam and the Crusades. Mr. Spencer, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
You were on a bit of a tour of Missouri this week, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me.
That's all right.
I spoke in Kansas City and in Springfield, in Jefferson City, and tonight in St. Louis. 7 o'clock at the Pillar Foundation.
And that's out in Ellisville there on Clayton Road near Clayton and Clarkson.
Near St. Louis, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that open to the public, correct?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Well, hopefully people still have time to do that. I think you speak tonight at 7 o'clock, correct?
Yes, that's right.
All right, very good. Tell me about your take on our current state of affairs in dealing with radical Islam.
Well, we're losing, and
Right.
we're losing because we refuse to face the problem. And we refuse to face the problem because Barack Obama tells us that if we call it Islam or radical Islam, if we say that we're facing jihadis, that it will make moderate Muslims mad at us and make more of them join jihad groups. And I think, well, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. If they were going to join jihad groups for something like that, then they were going to join them already. And the idea that they will be tipped over into jihad activity if they're actually peaceful people because we identify the problem correctly is an indication that they're not who they claim to be to start with. The fact is that we are facing a foe that is basing its recruitment and its teachings on Islamic texts and teachings itself, on the Quran and on the teachings of Muhammad, and they are getting recruits among peaceful Muslims because of that. And consequently, until we deal with that, we will not be able to defeat this enemy. You can't defeat an enemy you don't understand, much less one you refuse to understand.
What is the real, or is there a real threat from Sharia working its way into the United States?
Oh, absolutely. Sharia is Islamic law, and it applies to politics and to society as well as to religion, and it applies to non-Muslims in the Islamic scheme of things as well as to Muslims. It's violent, supremacist, and authoritarian, and it contradicts the United States Constitution in numerous ways and discriminates against women, discriminates against non-Muslims, denies the freedom of speech, and so on. And there are numerous endeavors going on right now to bring aspects of it to the United States, to make workplaces and schools conform to it by putting in special accommodations for Muslims. Not too long ago, I was debating an imam at a university in Michigan, and I went into the men's room, and there was a foot bath for the Muslims to wash their feet before prayers. And I thought, where are the holy water fonts? Where are the Torah scrolls? This is a public university. There should not be a special accommodation for Islam here, but there is because the Muslims demanded it, and it was considered to be a multicultural imperative to ensure our diversity. And it's by that kind of means that special accommodation and privileges, in accord with Sharia, are being granted to Muslims in the United States all over the country all the time.
And when you bring it up, whether it's on a radio station like this or somebody wants to introduce local legislation to make sure there's no Sharia law, people pounce on that immediately and act like it's an overreaction and somehow you're bigoted toward people who are Muslim.
Yes, that is the tactic that they use to silence all dissent on this issue. And they say that if you were concerned about the advance of Sharia, which is, as I say, a violent, supremacist, authoritarian ideology with numerous contradictions to the U.S. Constitution, then you're just hateful and racist and bigoted and Islamophobic. That is the way that they shut down all debate and all dissent. But there's really no substance to it. What I am, speaking for myself, is I'm interested in human rights, and I believe in the United States Constitution. I believe in non-establishment of religion, and I don't think that one group should have special rights and privileges that other groups don't have. And that's why I oppose Sharia. And that is the way that the opponents of Sharia need to proceed if we're going to fight against this rhetoric. But it is a very effective rhetorical tool that they use to beat down their enemies and marginalize them.
We're talking to Robert Spencer from Jihad Watch. He's going to be doing a presentation tonight at 7 out at the Pilar Foundation. It's on Clayton Road in Ellisville there, close to Clayton and Clarkson Roads. Mr. Spencer, I want to turn your attention for a moment to the current political debate in this country and Donald Trump's. He's changed his position on this slightly, but in terms of how he would deal with Muslim immigrants, wannabe Muslim immigrants coming into this country. How do you feel about that?
Well, the thing about it is that he's dealing with a real problem. Trump is trying to figure out some way to keep out Islamic jihadis. And there's no doubt that Islamic jihadis are going to come in with the refugees. That has happened already. In San Bernardino, California, last December, when 2 Muslims killed 15 people at a Christmas party, one of those people one of the shooters had passed 5 separate background checks from 5 different U.S. agencies to come into the U.S. So Obama says we're going to vet these refugees and keep the jihadis out. That has already been proven to be impossible. And in Paris last November, 2 of the shooters who killed 130 people there were refugees who had just come into Europe via Greece in October. And so Trump, in saying that we need to have some kind of moratorium on immigration from Muslim countries or immigration from terror-supporting states, he's dealing with a real problem. All the people who are saying he's a terrible racist, Nazi, bigot for saying this kind of thing have not come up with any alternative plan. The bottom line for them is they would rather see Americans dead in terror attacks than do anything politically incorrect to stop that from happening.
Well, the Brexit vote hinged largely on sovereignty issues and the refugees that are being brought in by the European Union, and people finally put their foot down. And then I see today, if you Google any top news story, the big deal in France is that they've overturned the burkini ban that some of these individual cities along the coast in France had put in place. I argued yesterday that's missing the point. The point is they have no control over their immigration laws.
Exactly. And the thing about the burkinis is that the cities that put in the ban were simply trying to deal again with this problem because they were recognizing that this is a symbol. This is not just an article of clothing, but this article of clothing is a symbol of this violent and supremacist ideology that they were trying to curb. And so it became this issue about people can wear what they want. I thought that was ironic because many, many women who wear the burqa and the niqab and the hijab are forced to. And there have been many, many more women who've been subjected to violence and even killed, and even in the United States killed, for not wearing the hijab than for wearing it. Nobody's ever been killed for wearing it. And so this is the whole conversation in France and in the West is off the point. It's not really about clothing. It's what we're going to do about this ideology, and nobody really seems to have any kind of plan. Nobody
on the left seems to take it seriously.
No, they don't take it seriously, and yet it continues to advance every day now practically. At my website, jihadwatch.org, I track jihad activity in the United States and around the world, and every day there's a stabbing, there's a shooting, there's a beheading. These are things becoming more and more frequent. I think probably very few people know that not too long ago, just a few days ago in Virginia, there was a Muslim screaming Allahu Akbar who stabbed 2 people, tried to behead them. And this kind of thing is going to become only more common because of these immigration policies.
And the cover-ups that go with it, because that's the last thing they'll want to admit when this happens is that somebody screamed Allahu Akbar.
Exactly.
They try to cover it up.
I see it again and again. They say, oh, this person was mentally ill. And I think I actually collected together about 20 or 30 of these stories where the guy's screaming Allahu Akbar and killing people or trying to, and then they say, oh, he's just mentally ill. And it's very clear that there is some strange, mysterious global outbreak of mental illness involving Muslims committing violence. And it's a ridiculous dodge from what we're really facing.
That's the truth. Robert Spencer from Jihad Watch, I'll direct people to your website, jihadwatch.org, but also remind them they have a chance to hear you speak tonight on this issue out at the Pilar Foundation. That's in the 15,800 block of Clayton Road in Ellisville, and that speech is at 7 p.m., correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And it is open to the public. Do people need to call ahead of time?
Nope. They just need to show up. There's no charge. Just walk on in.
Outstanding. Mr. Spencer, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yep. Safe travels to you.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate that. Good to have him on and somebody who can just cut right to the bone about what this is about. people are focusing in France. They try to ban burkinis from the beach. I mean, that's a symptom. That's not the cause of their problem. The cause of the problem is that they won't face the facts about their lack of an immigration policy and their blank slate acceptance of all refugees that want to flood into the European Union.